Welcome back to 760 Sports. I'm Eduardo Espinosa, and today we have a very special show. And yes, I say that a lot, but this time I really mean it because we've had one guest, we've had two guests, and now we have five guests joining me today to talk about many sports. First one being Matthew Freeman. Matthew, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
What we're going to talk about is WWE, one of the few sports to not stop in this pandemic. What can we expect in the near future for the company?
Well, WWE is still continuing with their shows. This coming up week on Friday Night SmackDown, we'll actually have a champion versus championship bout. We'll have Charlotte Flair versus Bayley, the NXT Women's Champion, taking on the SmackDown Women's Champion. And we also got mixed tag team action. We got Otis and Mandy Rose taking on Sonya Deville and Dolph Ziggler. They've been going at it for weeks. Otis has been separating Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville. We finally get to see the conclusion to that rivalry.
The other thing that's been weird about WWE recently is that they have gone through two pay-per-views without any fans at all, as well as their weekly shows like Monday Night Raw and Friday Night SmackDown. When can we expect the fans to return to those seats?
Right now, the next pay-per-view, Backlash, is still scheduled to go on at the Performance Center with no fans. But in recent news, WWE announced that SummerSlam will be pushed back out of Boston and possibly from August to September. WWE is looking to have fans in some capacity at their pay-per-view, and they want to have it somewhere, whether that's the Performance Center or possibly in Europe, which is some rumors that have spread.
Pretty interesting information. Thank you, Matt. And now we go over with Brandon Lamar Jackson. We're going to talk about NASCAR with him, or what's in line for the sport.
So this past weekend, the sport actually got back going. Had races on Sunday and Wednesday. It was weird. It was definitely weird having all the cars come around to start the race, let the green flag drop, and there just be silence. Like hearing the roar of the crowd is like a major part. Obviously, it's understood. It was still an amazing race. It actually had a lot of Twitter engagement with fans watching from home. Fox Sports also did 100,000 cameras where the fans recorded themselves watching the race and showed the highlights and the moments where people were excited throughout the race. Also, it was great. Kevin Harvick did a burnout for no fans in attendance, but he still got really into it. 4 of the top 10 things trending on Twitter on Sunday were related to NASCAR. So I think this is actually really great news for NASCAR, being the only sport to officially come back and having a lot of people watch it. The energy that was given from the broadcasters, Mike George, Jeff Gordon, Larry McReynolds, they did a wonderful job of coverage of the race. Also being able to use the drone more freely because they're not flying over fans in the stands, it was wonderful. A lot of amazing shots that they couldn't typically get, and a lot of good racing, more than anything. A lot of aggressive, fast-paced, back to NASCAR action.
Now we go over to the mixed martial arts world where we have Justin Hoffman joining us. And Justin, how did the latest UFC events go both financially and in the eyes of the public?
Well, in the eyes of the public, it was nothing but a success. However, we have the same issue that we had before when we had no fights for a month and a half. Where are a lot of these divisions at? They're still locked up. We've got Henry Cejudo, who was already stripped of his flyweight title and was the current bantamweight champion, just retired after defending his title against Dominic Cruz. So now there is no champion for bantamweight or flyweight at the moment. So those two weight classes are just up in the air. And on top of that, we finally do have a date for the greatest female mixed martial artist of all time, Amanda Nunes. She will be combating East Orlando native Felicia Spencer on June 6th at UFC 250. Financially, the first event they had within the 8-day span was a pay-per-view. And my first thought when I heard that was going to be a pay-per-view after a month and a half of people being out of jobs is, Dana, we don't have any money. I found the $65 laying around somewhere to pay for the pay-per-view regardless, and it didn't disappoint. We got to see the title fight between Dominic Cruz and Henry Cejudo, and even better, we saw the interim title fight between Justin Gaethje and Tony Ferguson, who hasn't lost in 8 years until that night. And just totally flipped the lightweight division on its head, because now the winner of this fight gets to fight Khabib Nurmagomedov whenever he's allowed to leave Russia.
Is it a great move to continue going on with these pay-per-views and events without any live fans?
Surprisingly, MMA appears to be a sport that can survive without a fan presence. It was still the same sport. However, we saw several times that fighters were picking up on the commentary from the ringside commentators and were able to adjust their game plans based on what they heard by former light heavyweight and heavyweight champion Daniel Cormier. They would pick up on what he said during their fights and adjust accordingly, and a couple of them actually ended up coming out victorious because of it.
What is the company's protocol on COVID-19?
They had been doing daily testing for anyone that was in the arena. All 3 events within the 8-day span took place in Jacksonville. And, of course, the rare occasion when the UFC comes to Florida, I don't get to go. Only one fighter tested positive. His fight was canceled with Uriah Hall, but that should be rescheduled at some point in the future, and we all, of course, wish him well.
Thank you for that. And now we go over to the greens with Michael Harbaugh. When can we expect the action to be returning to the golf course?
The PGA Tour is expected to start back up June 11th in Texas at the Colonial Golf Course. No spectators would be allowed to be there, and they would make golfers isolate themselves from the public once they're off the golf course. And also they said that the 25 players that are coming from out of the country must get there 2 weeks before the tournament begins.
What were to happen if one of these players tested positive for COVID-19?
They haven't really announced yet what they would do if someone tests positive, but it's going to be either between they're going to do what the UFC did, or they'll do it like the NBA did at the start of all this, where as soon as one person tests it, the whole thing just gets shut down.
Who should we be looking out for this upcoming tournament?
As long as everything goes planned, I think Justin Thomas will be the one to look out for.
And to close this ambitious project, we go over to Ryan Bowler, who's going to talk to us about tennis. What's next in the world of tennis?
One of the biggest things you have to remember about tennis is it's a global sport. So these athletes are playing all over the world, anywhere from Los Cabos to Atlanta. So as of right now, just recently, as of May 15th, the ATP has extended the tour suspension up until August 1st.
Which tournament can we expect being the first one back?
Well, right now, as scheduled for August 2nd, the City Open in Washington, D.C. is supposed to be the first tournament coming back. However, if you're really itching for tennis, there is talk that ESPN3 is looking to host some exhibition matches between some of the big names like Federer, Williams, Murray, Djokovic. So something to keep an eye on for sure.
Thank you guys for coming in. This was really fun, really ambitious. I'm glad we were able to pull it off.
Thank you for having us, Eduardo.
Sports are coming back, baby.